Hi guys, let's do a live coding session together as quickly as possible and to show you how we can manipulate arrays in JavaScript with a simple exercise, and we'll do it also in a synchronous manner using RxJs. And of course we'll do it all of this using test-driven development approach. I'm a huge fan of TDD, so let's do it in that way. So first of all, as you can see here, I have an empty project. So we will install the testing framework dependency called Jasmine, and we'll configure it very quickly. So first of all, I will init this project as a Node project because I will use the Node JavaScript runtime and also be able to get all the required dependencies such as the testing framework or RxJs. So first of all, let's initialize our project. Of course, it's npm init. Right, so here I have a freshly new created package.json file within my directory. I will install the Jasmine framework as I just told you as a development dependencies here, so you can see the Jasmine dependency appearing here, and I will also this is something that I like, another dependency called the jasmine-console-reporter. So let's install it. Jasmine-console-reporter, again and save in the dev environment. So what is this dependency? It's about printing in a more prettier way the results of the test within the console. To do so, you're also here in the package.json skeleton scripts, the scripts nodes that have a test script. So in this script, we will execute Jasmine. So to do so, I will create a Jasmine configuration file. Let's call it jasmine.js, and I'm just a little cheating here. Oh, you don't, yes, you see, and I will just copy past a configuration file that I have previously. So this file only says that, okay, this is the configuration of Jasmine. So Jasmine will look after the spec directory and all files ending with spec.js, and will execute the scripts, the test within these files. And we're also adding the freshly installed console reporter here that will magnify the way that tests are printed in the console. Now in my package.json, the only thing I do here, and I said, okay, whenever I will call the test scripts, you call Jasmine, simply. So let's test it here. I will call npm run test. It will execute this script here. And we have, of course, there is no specs, no test defined yet, but it will print it in a pretty way. So now, let's see what the exercise is. So imagine that you have a lot of mess inside your house. We all have a lot of mess. And we're building an application, a web application that will suggest you the items that you need to throw away within your house to make it more feng shui, to make it more, a better energy within your house. So we have a first APIs that list you inside an array all the items that you have within your house. So this is an exercise that I built from scratch, okay? So it says you have a couch, you have empty boxes all around your house, you have flowers, you have old magazines, a table and chairs. This API so it returns an array of objects. Each object has an ID and the item name here. And you have also another API here that will, this is the payload. The API will return you an array of IDs suggesting the items that you should throw away to make your interior more, more harmony. So here the API told you that within all the items, you need to get rid of empty boxes, ID number 1, and also old magazines, ID number 3. So the application we are building is consuming these two payloads, but we need to consolidate these two payloads to build a new object composed of two nodes. The first node representing all the items that we need to throw away. So it's not anymore only the ID. We need to get a subset of all the items based on this array. So we need these nodes here will have an array of two objects composed of the empty boxes and the old magazines. And we will also have a second node composed of all the remaining objects. That is not, namely not the empty boxes and the old magazines. So I hope you see here the purpose of this exercise is to get two arrays, one composed of business objects, another composed of only IDs, and we will build a fresh one object based on the consolidation of these two objects. And we'll do it firstly in a synchronous manner, and in the end of this video we'll do it in an asynchronous manner, because the APIs, your web server will return you their payloads in an expected amount of time. You don't master the time that the result will come, but you will also need to wait for the two APIs to have feed you with the payload before making your computations. So let's do this using, as we told in the beginning of this video, using test-driven development. So first of all, we'll build a test, but of course the meaning of a test is to fail first. So we need to test to fail. So let's go back to the coding IDE here, Atom. So first of all, we will create a directory for all of our source code. So let's call it source, and a directory for the tests. Okay, let's call it spec, as defined in the Jasmine configuration. So our business object will be called, let's call it feng shui.js, and let's call our test feng shui spec.js. So let's write our first test here. So when you do testing in JavaScript or in any other languages, we are using something we call SUT, system under test. So we are defining explicitly what is the object that we are testing here. So I am testing the object called feng shui, right? So all my tests will be based on this variable here called system under test, and you will see this in many other ways on other projects. Okay, so we'll also use for a test the two arrays that we have defined in the exercise. So first we'll use both of that, right? So I'm getting back to my here. So here I know that my list of items is this one and the list of IDs is this one. So we will create a first test. So the way Jasmine is working is really simple. So you create bulks of tests, okay? So my first test, I'm describing also what is this test. So I'm describing now that I want to test the Feng Shui controller unit tests, okay? And I can, for this bulk, this group of tests, I will describe each test unitarily. So first of all, I know that one of my tests one of my function should return items to throw away. Okay, items to throw away. This is the first test. And the way I will do this actually is that I will say that, maybe first I will say that I have an expected risk. No, I will do this later. I know that my system under test class, let's say object, should have a method call build items to throw, okay, taking two parameters, which is all the items and also the IDs, and this method should be defined, okay, should be defined within my fengshui.js.js. So let's run the test. Of course, the test is failing. What it says? It says, so I have my description here, Feng Shui controller unit test. It says the method should return item to throw away. Says that this method is not a function within my system under test. So let's create it. So I will go here in my Feng Shui, the source code, and I will create a function that takes items and IDs. Okay, it returns something now, an array, and let's simply export this method. Okay, so we will just module.export, and we'll say, okay, this is the method that we need to export. So if I'm running the test again, boom, okay, the test passed. So first of all, we have properly defined that this method should exist within the system and the test class. So now I will test the business rule. I know that I know the expected result. Whenever I feed this method with the items and an ID here, I know the expected result of items to throw, right? It's actually an array composed of two objects, the empty boxes and the old magazine. So the object having the ID number 1 and the object having the ID number 3. So again, we'll do that whenever I'm calling this method with items and IDs, I know that the result to equal the expected result that I just defined. Okay, it should be all clear at that point. So let's run the tests again. This test, boom, is failing. What it says that, okay, the method here is actually returning something, but an array, but the array is the length of 0 instead of being 2. And moreover, it says that the length of the array should be 2, but it also have to, output these 2 nodes here. So in order to make this test pass, I need to code within this method. So and either way, of course, we can't do this because it won't work for all inputs and output. We can say, okay, I can just simply, in a raw manner, return the expected object, the expected array. And of course, the test is passing because the output of this method is exactly the output of the test, of the expected test. But we don't do this way because actually it's not a pure function in that way, because whenever the items the input parameter is, I will always have this output, which is not really the case in real way. Sorry. So here we will simply filter the items array and says, okay, just keep the object within this array that matches this condition. For each item within the items array, check that if the item ID is included in the IDs array. Let's run the test. Okay, sorry, it includes here. Let's run the test. Okay, the test is passing. Now, I am sure that this function is properly returning the items of this array based on an array of IDs. Okay. In the same manner, I will create a new test that I know that what I'm expecting that a method that I will create should return items to keep, not to throw away this time. So to do so, I'm exactly proceeding the same way. So I know that, first of all, I need to have a method within the system and the test that build items to keep. Okay, taking two parameters, the items array and the IDs, and this method should be defined, simply defined. Let's run the test. Of course, the test is failing. It tells me this is not a function. So let's create a function. Function build item to keeps. I'm putting items and IDs, and I'm returning an empty array for now, and I'm exporting this method. So now the test should pass because the method is defined. Now I will create again the expected result of this method should be actually all the items minus the items that have the IDs within this array. So let's take the full items list here and just remove empty boxes and old magazines to make your interior more feng shui. Okay, so in the same manner, I will expect that my system under test, when I will call build items to keep feeding with the items and IDs, I will need to have the result of this function should be the expected result that we just defined above. Okay, so let's run test. Of course, it's failing. It says what it says, reference servers. Okay, it's not sure. It's shoot system under test. Okay, it says there is an error here. Haven't refreshed in a way. Okay, now. Okay, it says, well, you're returning an array, but your length is 0. It should be 4, and it should contain all the 4 nodes here. So let's go back to the source code here and do exactly the same as previously, as the previous method. We will filter this time on the complementary of what we just did. So for each item within the items array, filter them, and it should match this condition. So the ID of each item should not be included in the IDs array. Okay. And if I'm running the test, it doesn't work. Let's see why. IDs includes, it's not a function. Yes, it's includes, not include. Okay, now that all the tests passed correctly, so my feng shui control unit test had now 2 tests that is correctly passing. But let's go back to the exercise. What we need at the end is this object. We need an object composed of 2 nodes, right? A consolidated object. So let's copy this one and let's create another test for matching these needs. So what I will do now that we'll create a new test, and we'll say that the method that I will test now should return a consolidated object, right? Composed of what we just said. See. So let's do this, and how we'll test that. So first of all, I just copied the expected result. But before that, we again, as previously, will test that the method that I will create now should exist. So let's call it feng shui. It takes items and IDs, and it should be defined. So let's run the test. Of course, it's failing. Let's build the function called build feng shui. Return an object this time, and let's export it. Okay, build feng shui. Okay, it's working. The tests are passing. Now I have my expected results. Remember from the problem, my expected result would be this one. So I should have an object, again, composed of a node called throw, of another node called keep. Okay, the items to keep, the items to throw. So my method here should actually return, if I'm calling this method, build function, it should return the expected results. Of course, if I'm running the test, it's not the case. It says there is an error, your object should have the following properties, and it does not have. So simply I will have to return an object. So let's create a result, which is an object, and let's make this test pass. To do so, just the result, there is a property called keep that will be using the function we just defined previously, which is build items to keep. And we have a throw property here, which will be relying on the previous method we just built to. So most of the time you don't need, so this is the purpose of the exercise. I have shown you how you can test here. But actually, these two methods here, build items to keep and build items to throw, are implementation details. I do not have to, actually, if I will do it in a more industrialized way, I will only have to test this method, but for the purpose of destructuring the way we are testing, I have exploded it in many functions. So now let's test this method here. It's the should return consolidated object as it was said in the problem is working correctly. So I can now build desired objects. It's a good news, but we all did this in a synchronous manner. Now in the real world, let's say these payloads here, items and IDs, actually are returned in an asynchronous manner, right? Because there's our API and we're making web calls. So let's create a new bulk of test for this synchronous way. So I will call it this synchronous way, and I will create a new, let's call it describe. I will actually use exactly the same description, but I will say build synchronous controller unit test. Okay. And so what does this? So the first method here would be the method that I want to create should return same thing, consolidated result. Okay. So in order to materialize the synchronicity, I will install RxJs. So I'm just keeping this test on hold, and I'm installing RxJs simply. Okay. Now you can see in the package JSON that we have as a dependency RxJs here installed. So going back to my test, I will exactly have the same test of as here, expected consolidated object. So I will have the same output actually here, the same expected results, but in an asynchronous manner. So first off, I will test that I have a method that can execute asynchronicity here. To do so, let's say that I have my system under test have a method called build asynchronous function. Okay. It takes again, it takes the same input in terms of IDs, and this method is defined. Let's run it. Oh, sorry, it's not installed RxJs, already installed. It's run test. Okay, I have an error because it says, okay, I have an error of syntax. Here, it should be this way. Let's run the test. Okay. Now I have an error that says, okay, this is not a function. This function doesn't exist. So let's quickly create it. So you see it's the same dynamic here. Once you get used to it, it will be very, very, very easy to make it in an iterational way. So we'll return an object, okay? So, no, the test is not passing. It's not a function, of course. I need to export it, otherwise the client, which is the test here, doesn't see it. Okay, all the tests passed. Now the test passed because the method exists, but I will have to, let's say, check the result of the asynchronous operations here. So what I will do, actually, using RxJs, I will transform these arrays into observables. So we just take RxJs as a dependency, and we'll just get the off operator here, okay? And we'll say that expect my system under test build asynchronous function if I'm passing observables of items and observable of ITs, right, and that I'm subscribing. So this method actually should return an observable, should consume as an input observables of items and observable of IDs, but it should also return an observable so I can subscribe to it. And I can consume the result, right? Which should be the expected result here. So what I will do here, again, first, that I want to check that if the result, so if this method is returning observable and I have a result, any result, okay. Let me run the test. The test fails. What it says subscribe is not a function. So this method doesn't return me an observable so I can subscribe to it. Okay? So let's fix this. First of all, so item should be an observable. So if I return items here, let me call it item observable. It's an ID is observable. So if I'm returning the observable here, the test should pass. I'm still having an error. What is it? So it's not a function. Let me fix it so it's very live. System on the test tag of what is this? It's here. That subscribe. This is not expected. Let me fix it. Time.js expect subscribe is not a function. Let me here try to import also. Let me test in live with you. Require RxJs, okay. Up and let me return an observable of an empty array. Up. Still, subscribe is not a function. Return off. Okay, expect that. How? Okay. If you have any ID, of course you cannot interact with me. What is this method here? Expect. Okay, it probably comes from What is this? Okay, it's here. Subscribe. Okay. Subscribe is one method here. Expect. I have my results. I need the results to be, but it doesn't know about subscribe. Of IDs, country, up, of course. Of course, I need to do this. No, sorry, it's not this one, because why? This is closing the expect, but I don't want to close expect here. I want to close. Okay, here. Now this should work. Okay, it passed. So you can see here that I am able to subscribe to this method because this method is returning an observable, which is for now the items observable, which is for now an empty observable. So let's just test it. Let's return here. Boom. Okay, it's passing away. Now, what I want to do is actually combining the two observables, which came in an expected time. Okay, and I will do an operation once the two observables has came into the processing here. To do so, I will use an operator called combine latest. Combine latest. The combine latest thing operator will allow me to combine, to wait for the two observables to came into hands. Okay, the items observable and the ID observable. And once I have the two observables, I am able to add a function that will process the two observable results. So it will take, so the items observable will return items, the ID observable will returns IDs, and now of course I can simply return the synchronous method here that we have tested, but it will be executed in a synchronous way. Up, and if I'm testing it, sorry, I have been one time ahead about my testing, which is not good. Here I should have tested that my expected, sorry, my expected result should be equal to the expected result here. Expected result. This test is always passing. Okay, I haven't told you something, because now I need to be sure that I am getting into this subscribe, the on next, right? The on next method. To do so, I will need to add a condition, some kind of method here that says, okay, the tests are done only if if Jasmine is having the done function being called in some way. This is the way that we can test the synchronicity here. So if I'm running the test, okay, all tests passed. And it's all tests passed very quickly. You can see here it took 3 milliseconds. But let's, I don't know, let's suppose that I don't know how to tell it. Let's make it a delay here. Okay, let's add the delay operator here, and let's say that I want to delay, I don't know, the pipe. Is it this one? No, sorry, it's like this one. I'm piping with a delay of 3 seconds, sorry. Let me test it. What it says, delay is not a function. I don't know if it's, is it this way? Is it from the operator way? I don't remember. RxJs.delay. No, what happened? Oh, sorry, it's the operators. Okay, and now you can see that the test is on hold. It has, waited more than 3 seconds because we have added a delay here of 3 seconds. This show you, and this is the proof of that we are testing asynchronicity here, because we are simulating that my observable is coming from more than 3 seconds delay. So this is the way that you can test asynchronicity. We have seen how we can consolidate two arrays of different types. One is object, the other is only IDs pointing to the object. I hope the course, not the course, the live coding session has been good, and do not hesitate to interact in any kind. For the comments, or if you have questions or whatever, thank you.